I used to think loneliness had a color. In our house, it was the pale blue of morning, light that slips over the counter, touches the mug, and leaves everything a little colder than before. Our marriage wasn't a war. There were no slammed doors, no broken plates, just the soft, even hum of two quiet people living parallel lives, like train tracks that never quite meet. I'd wake before the alarm and listen to the refrigerator breathe. I'd listen for my own heartbeat, wondering when it got so quiet that even Joy forgot my address. Neighbors would call us stable, and I'd smile because that word is a compliment where I'm from. Stable jobs, stable bills, stable photos on the mantle that look like proof. But stability has a cousin named numbness, and she shows up politely, shoes off, hands folded, asking nothing and taking everything. I told myself this was adulthood. Fewer fireworks, more calendars. Love, but tempered. Safe, but thin. Chris is good on paper, dependable, kind in a practical way. Never forgets trash day. He narrates the weather and the mileage on his car, and sometimes I think he loves the forecast because it promises something precise. With him, life is measured, receipts squared, towels even, feelings filed. When he talks, I hear sentences that land like periods. When I talk, I hear myself proofreading. We don't fight. We negotiate. We don't kiss. We confirm. I move around the kitchen like a ghost that knows the map by heart. Invisible is not the same as peaceful, but it looks similar if you only visit. I wanted to feel. Anything with sharp edges. Anything that proved I wasn't just a silhouette in my own life. I caught my reflection on the microwave door one night and didn't recognize the eyes staring back. "You're fine," I told her. She didn't answer. If you've ever been so lonely that your bones ring hollow, you understand this part. You reach for a sound, a spark, a sign. You promise yourself a small rebellion, something harmless. A new lipstick, a drive with the radio too loud. A secret thought you don't confess. I did find a way to feel. It wasn't a kiss or a key or a suitcase. It came with sirens. It wore white light and smelled like antiseptic. I learned that when your world finally jolts awake, it can do it by breaking. This is the part I'm not proud of. The escape I found wasn't salvation. It was a tragedy. And the worst thing about it is how honest it made me. The night I finally felt something, someone else stopped feeling anything at all. Chris gets home at 6:47 most nights. Keys hit the bowl by the door. Clatter. Stop. And that's the sound that tells me which version of him walked in. He doesn't kiss my cheek or ask about my day. He checks the thermostat, glances at his phone, and drifts toward his office like a tide that never knew the shore. If he stays downstairs, the TV does the talking. If he goes upstairs, the door does. Dinner is functional. I plate the chicken. He scrolls. I try. "How was your day?" "Fine." "What did you and Nate decide about the bid?" "Later." The rest is silverware and swallowing. I count the seconds between our sentences the way people count lightning before thunder. Mostly, there is no thunder. We weren't fighting. Fighters at least look at each other. We were efficient. We synced calendars. We split bills. We wiped the counters in 2 straight lines. We were just roommates. There are 1,000 tiny ways to be lonely inside the same house. You start narrating your own movements because no one else will. I'm rinsing the pan. I'm taking out the trash. I'm setting 2 glasses even though one would do. At night, I slide into bed and he's already turned away, his back a polite wall. It has been a long time. "Are you okay?" I asked him once, in the dark. He took a breath like he was choosing a word. Tired. That was the last conversation we had about us. After that, I learned to translate the creaks of the floorboards and the weight of the silence. I learned that invisibility doesn't happen all at once. It gathers, like dust you only see when morning light betrays it. With his mother, I wasn't a wife. I was staff. She never said, "Thank you for having us." Only, "There you are." She'd arrive without warning, texting Chris, not me, then ring while turning the knob. "Coffee?" I'd offer. She'd sip, purse her lips. "Leah, dear, your coffee is a little weak. Chris likes it stronger." Her eyes would sweep the room like a clipboard. "House looks lived in." And then, sharp as a pin, "Chris looks thin." I don't know if you've ever been demoted in your own home, but it sounds like compliments that end in question marks. It feels like standing while other people sit. And Chris? He didn't correct her. He didn't say, "Mom, Leah's my wife." He didn't say anything at all. He'd fold his arms, stare at the middle distance, and let me drown in polite smiles. Once, when she asked whether I kept up with the laundry, I laughed to soften it. Chris stared at the floor and let the moment pass like weather. The worst part wasn't her judgment. It was his silence. Silence can be a verdict. 2. Last month was our 5th anniversary. I made a reservation at the little place on Maple, the one with the dark wood and the soft lamps where people go to remember why they picked each other. I put on the dress he once said made my eyes look like winter glass. I texted him at 7:30. "I'll meet you there?" At 6:12, he replied, "Have to work late." "How late?" I typed. No answer. I kept the reservation. I sat at the two-top by the window and watched couples argue about bread in that affectionate way that means they're still alive. At 7:50, the host refolded our second napkin. At 8:10, the waiter stopped asking. At 9:03, I told them I'd take the dessert to go, a slice of lemon cake that tasted like a dare. I drove home with the box on the passenger seat like a promise nobody signed. I lit the candles anyway. I poured sparkling water into champagne flutes because the sound is similar if you don't listen too closely. The door opened at 11:02, keys in the bowl, jacket on the chair. "Long day," he said, walking past the table without seeing it, without seeing me. "Chris," I tried, voice too calm for the fire in my chest. He looked at the candles like they were a power outage. "You didn't have to wait up." He rubbed his temple, climbed the stairs, and the bedroom swallowed him whole. I stood there in a dress that suddenly fit like a costume. The wax hummed. One candle gave up, then the next. I only realized I was crying when a tear hit my wrist and cooled. He never noticed. He didn't come back down. He didn't ask. He went to bed and turned his back. The ritual complete. I stared at the empty chair across from me and asked the quiet a question I had been afraid to say out loud. Is this the rest of my life? That's when my phone buzzed. My sister, Sarah. Her voice was tight, breathless. "Lee, I need you." And just like that, the story I thought I was living. Roommates, silence, lemon cake, tilted. I grabbed my keys. The bowl clattered. And for the first time in a long time, I moved toward something. The night after the candles died, my phone buzzed. I didn't pick up on the first ring, or the second. On the third, I answered, and all I heard was air around my sister's voice. "Lee," Sarah said, thin as paper. "I'm tired. I can't keep food down. The doctor says it's exhaustion." I dropped 10 pounds, about 4.5 kilos. She coughed, apologized for the cough, like it might inconvenience me. I hate asking, but, "Leah, I need you." I told her yes before my brain caught up, because that's what sisters say. But the first wave that rose inside me wasn't fear. It wasn't even urgency. It was relief. Shame followed fast, hot and accurate. How do you admit that your sister's weakness felt like a door cracking open? I stood at our kitchen counter, looking at the untouched slice of lemon cake from the night before, and all I could think was, here it is. A way out that doesn't look like running. I'll come, I said. I'll pack tonight. When I hung up, I pressed my palm to the cool counter and told the empty room the respectable version, I'm being a good sister. But under that sentence was the truer one, the one I hated. I'm escaping. He came in at his usual time, keys in the bowl, the routine like a clock that never needs winding. I'm going to Sarah's, I said before the TV found its voice. For a few weeks. She's really sick. He looked past me toward the calendar on the fridge. A few weeks? He rubbed the bridge of his nose. What about my mom? She's been coming over on Thursdays. And dinner? There are sentences that explain a marriage better than any memoir. That was one of ours. She's ill, Chris. I didn't say she wasn't. He tapped his phone. We've got the charity gala next Friday. And the car, if you take it. How am I supposed to? I watched him line up his problems like invoices, precise and impersonal. I waited for the question that never came. Is she okay? Something in me let go without making a sound. I wasn't angry. Anger implies hope that the other person might change. This felt colder. Cleaner. The click of a lock that will not reopen. I'm going, I said. He blinked. When will you be back? I don't know. He nodded the way people nod at weather. Okay. Text me the address. I went upstairs and pulled the small suitcase from under the bed. The zipper sounded louder than it should have. I packed quickly. Jeans, 2 sweaters, the dress that still smelled faintly of citrus and wax. On my way out, the bowl clattered when I grabbed my keys, and I saw him glance up from his phone, not at me, but at the noise. Drive safe, he said. He didn't follow me to the door. He didn't ask for a hug. We were beyond that. Past fighting, past pleading, at the quiet edge where people simply stopped trying. The city fell behind me in a line of red taillights and predictable exits. I rolled the window down 2 inches and let cold air scrape my lungs clean. For the first time in years, my chest lifted all the way. I could breathe. The dashboard clock glowed 10:14, then 10:37, then 11:02, and with each mile the house I'd left felt smaller, like a postcard of somewhere I once lived. Freedom arrived in little pulses, the radio between stations, a trucker's headlights blinking a gentle pass, the empty stretch of highway where no one asked me anything at all. Then guilt slid into the passenger seat. What am I doing? I'm using my sister's illness as an exit. The thought had edges. It made my fingers tighten on the wheel. But right behind it came another truth. Quieter and steadier. She asked for me. She needs me. 2 things can be true at once. I can be running from one life and running towards someone I love. I pictured Sarah's house. The narrow porch with the chipped rail, the maple tree that throws good shade in summer. It's a quieter neighborhood than mine, a place where people wave without stopping you, where the nights carry porch-light moths, and not much else. I remembered how her kitchen smells like cinnamon toast, and how she keeps her mugs on open shelves because she says good things should be easy to reach. As I turned off the highway, the streets narrowed and slowed. Bungalows with sleepy windows, lawns trimmed into early winter stubble. A bicycle leaned against a fence like it trusted everyone. My GPS whispered, "Arrived," and there it was. The porch light already on, a yellow coin against the dark. I parked at the curb and let the engine tick its cooling rhythm. For a minute, I didn't move. My hands rested on the wheel the way you hold a goodbye longer than the person you're leaving. I'm here for Sarah, I told the steering column, and then, more quietly, to myself. I have to believe that. I stepped out. Gravel under my boots, night air like a bracing hand on my face. Somewhere, a wind chime spoke a single careful note. I grabbed my suitcase from the back seat and started up the walk. I didn't know, standing on those porch steps with my sister's name on my tongue, that the first voice I'd hear inside wouldn't be hers. "Hey, are you Leah?" A man called from the hallway as the door opened. "I'm Mark." The music in my head shifted, a thread of curiosity tightening into something sharper. I had left one world behind. Without meaning to, I was already inside another. The house felt tended to. Warm light, books stacked neatly on a side table, a knit throw folded with the kind of care you give what matters. It was everything my place wasn't. Soft, present, alive. Sarah was on the sofa, small under a gray blanket. Her cheeks were pale. Her wrists looked like thin punctuation marks at the ends of her sleeves. When she saw me, her mouth trembled into a tired smile. "Leah, thank God you're here," she whispered. I knelt, took her hand. It was cool, birdlight. Up close I could see the 10 pounds missing, the way exhaustion makes a face look both older and childlike. When I saw her like that, hollowed out, brave anyway, guilt surged so fast it burned. I did not come here for escape. I came for my sister. I kept repeating it like a prayer. I am here for Sarah. I have to be. Footsteps in the hall. Careful ones. Mark appeared with a small white tray, 2 mugs of tea, a pill bottle, a digital thermometer balanced on a folded napkin. He looked used up in the honest way of people who haven't been sleeping, but his eyes were steady. "Pain a 6 or 7? He asked Sarah softly, setting the tray down. He shook out 2 pills, checked the label twice, waited until she swallowed, then tucked the blanket tighter around her ankles like he'd done it 100 times. Only then did he turn to me. Really turn, like I wasn't an afterthought. He offered a mug. The good kind of hot that warms your fingers all the way through. "Thank you for coming, Leah," he said. "Long drive?" I nodded. He held my gaze another second, not prying, just present. "Are you holding up okay?" 4 ordinary words, placed exactly where a person lives. They landed with a care I couldn't remember being given. In Chris's world, questions were about schedules. In Mark's, they were about people. He didn't hover. He didn't make it a scene. He brushed a strand of hair from Sarah's forehead, adjusted the lamp to a softer angle, and moved to the kitchen to rinse the thermometer, humming a tune you hum when you're keeping fear polite. Everything about him said, "I am here. I am trying. You matter." Silence stretched between the steam from my cup and the rhythm of Sarah's breath. "Are you holding up okay?" 4 simple words. 4 words my husband hasn't asked me, maybe in 3 years. I stood there in my sister's perfect living room, looking at my sister's devoted husband, and my heart didn't just beat. It stumbled, then leapt. As if it recognized heat after a long winter, it skipped. The skip wasn't relief. It was a warning, because inside that small, grateful jolt was something I did not invite and could not afford. I am here for Sarah. Say it again. Say it until the echo drowns out the other thing. I sipped the tea to buy a second of composure, tasted honey and the slightest squeeze of lemon, and felt a line I didn't know I'd drawn brighten in my chest. On one side, duty, blood, promise. On the other, the dangerous ache of being seen. And in that sober, gentle room, I understood the risk. I wasn't relieved. I was afraid. Days found a rhythm that wasn't mine, but I kept it anyway. Morning. Swap the cool washcloth, log Sarah's temp, count the pills twice. Afternoon. Fold the blanket to the same careful line, read a chapter aloud until her eyes gave in. Evening. Ginger tea, soft lamp, whisper jokes small enough not to wake the ache in her body. Mark would get home looking 5 degrees past tired. He'd kiss her forehead, check the med timer, mouth, "Thank you," to me, and exhale in that way people do when they're holding the house together with both hands. By 9, the medicine pulled Sarah under. The room settled. The clock clicked like it didn't want to disturb anyone. The quiet was complete. I went to the kitchen for water, sliding the drawer shut with 2 fingers. The refrigerator hummed. A floorboard announced another set of steps, and Mark appeared, sleeves pushed up, the faint line of worry still between his brows. We both lowered our voices without agreeing to. "She okay?" he asked. "Better after the tea," I said. "Pain's a 5. He nodded, reached for a glass, and we stood there like conspirators against noise, both of us careful not to clink. He noticed the paperback spine peeking from under my elbow. "You're reading that?" A smile. Small. Real. I thought I was the only person defending this author. I laughed quiet. I like the messy ones. Characters who don't make the right choice on page 10. "That's everyone in this house," he said, then caught himself and shook his head. Fond and sad at once. We talked about plots because plots are neutral, about the ending I hoped the author would earn, about the way some scenes feel like they were written at 3 a.m. when the world is honest. The talk drifted the way good rivers do, unforced, into work. He had a big case pressing, a thicket of depositions, and a judge who hated lateness. "It's not the hours," he said. "It's how they eat the edges of you." I told him I used to work at the hospital, that I missed the steps that knew my feet. Chart, check, comfort, repeat. "Night shift makes a different kind of sense," I said. "There's a hush. People tell you the truth at 3 in the morning." He didn't just nod. He asked the next question. "What part did you love most?" No one asks that unless they mean it. I opened my mouth and realized I had to reach back, past months of being fine, to remember the feeling. "The moment someone's breathing changes because they're not afraid anymore," I said. He looked at me like that answer mattered. And in the space that opened, I heard a rude fact. I could not remember the last time Chris asked me anything that required more than one word. We kept it safe. We kept it small. A paragraph about a book. A sentence about a judge. A nod at the weather moving in. But the safety felt warm. Warm is a kind of danger when you've been cold too long. A joke about a ridiculous courtroom anecdote made us both laugh. Soft, careful, kitchen midnight laughter. Then quiet. Mark's shoulders fell a notch. He stared at the steam lifting from his mug. "It's really good to just talk," he said. "Just talk about nothing." A breath. "Sarah's illness has changed her, even when she's awake. Sometimes she's not here." He swallowed. "I miss her. I miss my wife. It's lonely." The word landed like a struck glass. Lonely, and the ring of it kept ringing. He was talking about my sister, the woman I was here to protect. But what echoed in me was my own house, my own silence. I looked at him, not the warm eyes or the careful hands, but the fact of a good man standing in a kitchen at 9:17 p.m., doing his best and coming up short against something no one can fix. And I knew, with the clean honesty of winter air, that we were the 2 loneliest people in this home. The right move was obvious. Say, "Good night," turn off the light, take the stairs one careful step at a time. I didn't. I let the pause hold until my voice found a steady place to stand. "I understand," I said. The refrigerator kept humming. The house kept breathing. And somewhere a line I hadn't meant to cross drew itself in brighter ink. Evenings found their gentle ritual. VO, hush. After Sarah fell asleep, the house exhaled. Mark and I moved like a small, competent team, plate stacked, faucet low, laughter the kind you keep in your throat so you don't wake someone you love. We were careful. We were harmless. We had found a rhythm. We were a team. And that week, I was almost happy. The phone on the counter buzzed across the wood. Screen lit my name in another life. Chris. That name was a cold douse. My smile folded itself away. Mark saw the screen, the way my shoulders locked, and, without a word, he set the dish towel down and slipped out into the hall, leaving me the kitchen, the call, the air. I didn't want his voice to touch this room. I took the phone to the porch, where the night kept quiet company. I closed the door behind me and stared at the sliver of my reflection in the glass. VO, breath. I listened to it ring like I was already in trouble. Then I answered. Hi, Chris. His voice hit hard, too loud for the hour. It's been a week. Leah, a week? How long are you planning to vacation over there? Vacation? I whispered. She's sick. She dropped 10 pounds. He cut me off. Sick? My mother is sick. She's alone. Who's handling dinner? Who's handling the house? You just left. I told you. Sarah needs me. And what about me? Paper rustled as if he were tallying. Grievances. You can't just disappear. Come home. He didn't ask, how's Sarah? He didn't ask, are you sleeping? He asked where his services had gone. I'll come back when she's stable, I said, steady as I could. Stable? He laughed without humor. Unbelievable. Text me a date. And if you took the car keys, bring them back tomorrow. Mom's coming by and I'm not cooking. The line went quiet for a second. Then a click. Or maybe I hung up. Maybe we both did. It felt the same. A door closed from the wrong side. My hand shook, the phone a small weight that suddenly felt like judgment. I braced a palm against the porch post and stared at the yard until the dark steadied. I was trembling, but not with sadness. With a clean, cold anger. He made me feel small. He made me feel dirty, like I'd abandoned a job instead of answering a sister. I swallowed hard. Do not cry, not here, not now. My breath stuttered anyway. The kitchen door creaked a fraction, then softened shut. I didn't turn. Shame has a way of pinning your eyes forward. I didn't hear footsteps, just the hush of a presence that understood how to leave room. A second later, a simple cardboard box slid into the corner of my vision, stopping on the little porch table beside my hand. Tissues. Mark didn't touch me. He didn't say, "What happened?" He didn't offer solutions or reach for the broken pieces. He only saw me. He made space for me to fall apart with dignity. I took one sheet, then another, the way you do when you're trying not to. My throat burned. The night held still around us, respectful. Inside, the house ticked its small, faithful ticks. Beyond the rail, a single car passed and didn't slow. My husband, the man who vowed to love me, made me want to scream. My brother-in-law, a stranger really, said nothing, and by doing nothing, he made me cry. I dabbed the corner of my eyes, small and quick, as if neatness could make it less true. Mark's hand entered the frame only to nudge the box closer, then withdraw. He kept his gaze on the dark yard, not on me, like a guard against embarrassment. "Do you want hot water?" he asked finally, voice barely above the night. "For tea." I could only nod. Because the real answer was yes, to tea, to being seen, to the terrible, careful way this house had begun to feel like rescue. And there, between the phone's old life and the kitchen's soft light, I understood what had shifted. The call wasn't just an interruption, it was the shove, off the edge of what I could tolerate, into what I would choose. It was the kind of late morning that forgives you. Sun on the porch rail, a light breeze lifting the mailbox flag. I was watering the ferns, thinking about nothing for once, letting peace be ordinary. After that call, I stopped answering Chris. Some part of me thought if I ignored him, he'd evaporate. I was wrong. SFX, tires screeching to a hard stop at the curb. He climbed out of the car in yesterday's shirt, creased, jaw tight. Rage pressed into the lines of his face. He didn't knock. He didn't look at the door. He came straight for me across Sarah's lawn like he had a claim. "Leah!" His voice was already a shove. "What do you think you're doing? Get in the car. We're going home." The watering can tipped. The porch step suddenly felt too narrow for both my feet. "Chris," I said, keeping my voice low for the sake of this quiet street, this quiet house. "You need to leave. Now's not—" He closed the distance. "Leave?" He laughed without smiling. "You left." I took a step back, felt the rail catch my hip. "You're scaring me. Please go." SFX. Close. Harsh. "Scared? I'll show you scared." His hand snapped around my wrist. Not a touch. A claim. He yanked, hard enough for the bones to complain. The watering can clanged against the step, water fanning across the boards. It wasn't just a grip. It was ownership. Like I was a forgotten briefcase he came to retrieve. He tugged me toward the walkway, toward the open car door waiting like a mouth. "Stop, Chris, stop. You're hurting me. Let go." He pulled again. The world tilted. I twisted to free myself and couldn't. For one hot second I was a spectacle on my sister's grass, panic popping in my throat like static. VO. And the humiliation was its own violence, my husband dragging me in daylight, in front of a house that had held me gently. "Enough," I said, breathless, trying to peel his fingers away. "Chris." SFX. Front door opens. Quiet. Controlled. Mark. He stood in the doorway in the clean lines of his work clothes, tie loose, hair still damp from the shower. He didn't run. He didn't shout. He stepped off the threshold like a verdict. He stopped 3 feet from us and set his voice low, steady, with a gravity that carried further than volume ever could. "Chris, let go of her." Chris gave a short, ugly laugh. "Back off, Mark. She's my wife. Family business." Mark didn't look at me. He looked only at the hand on my wrist, then at Chris. He took one more step. "Get your hands off her," he said, each word a ground rule, "and get off this property. Now." Something changed in the air. An alignment. Chris felt it too. Bullies know when they've met a wall. He squeezed once more, out of spite, then shoved me away so I folded onto the grass. "You'll regret this, Leah," he spat, retreat already in his heels. He slammed into the car and tore down the street, fury in the tailpipe. The quiet returned all at once, like a blanket shaken out and let go. I sat where I fell, the blades of grass cool through the fabric, my wrist throbbing in small stunned pulses. My husband, who promised to love me, had just tried to drag me like luggage. My brother-in-law, almost a stranger, had just stood between me and that hand. Mark's shadow crossed mine before his voice did. "Are you hurt?" Still calm. Still not crowding. He held out his palm, not for my wrist, but for my choice. I took it. He lifted me as if he were returning something to where it belonged. Inside. He set a glass of water on the counter and turned the faucet down to a hush. "Sarah's sleeping," he said gently, as if the house itself needed reassurance. "We'll keep it that way." I stood there shaking, not with fear, but with the shock of being defended. For the first time in my life, someone said no on my behalf, and meant it. I looked at the door Chris had failed to own, at the porch that had held, at the man who had stepped forward without noise or permission. It was the first time, God help me, the first time anyone had ever stood up for me like that. And in that new, frightening certainty, I knew something had shifted that could not shift back. Morning came in heavy, like the house had inhaled during the night and forgot how to let go. The air was so thick you could cut it. I woke in my room, my own room, staring at a ceiling that wouldn't blink first. For 3 long breaths, I didn't move. Then the memory turned its face toward me and I heard myself think, very quietly, what did I do? The hallway had that Sunday morning hush that punishes you for any sound. The floorboards seemed to study each step. I stood with my hand on the doorknob for too long, bargaining with a silence that was not peaceful anymore. It was ashamed. I went out anyway. The kitchen was a still life. Sunlight stalled on the counter, a mug from last night by the sink like an exhibit, the machine's chrome reflecting a woman I recognized and didn't. Mark was already there, shoulders squared to the espresso maker as if it required full concentration to survive. "Morning," he said, but it came out smaller than the room. "Morning," I answered, and my voice made me flinch. He stared at the filter basket like it had secrets. I stared at the kettle like it owed me instructions. We both reached for different drawers at the same time, and then, polite choreography, both retreated. It would have been funny if it weren't us. The man who defended me last night, the man who made a line in the world and stood on my side, was now 3 careful steps away, pretending the coffee required both our lives. We weren't allies. We were accomplices. I opened the cupboard, closed it, opened it again, suddenly a visitor in a house I'd tended to for weeks. "Is she still asleep?" I asked, as if the answer could fix anything. "Yeah," he said. The meds hit hard. His hand hovered over a spoon and then chose a sugar packet instead. Like eye contact with stainless steel might be safer than eye contact with me. The machine hissed. The kettle clicked. A spoon chimed against ceramic with the precise, guilty music of the morning after. "Thanks," I said to nothing in particular. He said. Agreement with a period. I tried to stand in a version of myself that made sense. The caregiver, the sister, the woman who folds blankets to the exact line. That woman advocated for hydration and rest, not for the irrevocable. But every object in the room seemed to remember a sentence I couldn't unsay. I told myself I was only here to help Sarah. I told myself we were careful. We were good. We were trying. And yet, whatever happened between the call and the door, between anger and defense, left its fingerprint on everything. Shame has texture. You feel it on your skin. He set a mug near me without looking, then shifted to the sink, running water like an alibi. "Thanks," I said again, softer. "Yeah." A beat. "Hot enough?" "It's fine." That word, fine, landed between us like a familiar lie. We drank in tiny, busy sips, as if occupation could pass for innocence. I watched a dust mote hang in the light, refusing to fall. I envied its balance. I wanted to rewind to the safe kitchen nights, the soft conspiracies of books and work and careful laughter. But the bubble was gone. In its place, the kind of quiet that knows your first and middle names. My hand trembled just enough that I pressed my palm flat to the counter. It felt cool, almost forgiving. I waited for one of us to say something like a plan. Neither of us did. He reached for a second mug and passed it toward me without turning his head. Our fingers didn't touch. They almost did. That almost so loud it rang, and I pulled back too quickly, the teaspoon slipping from my grasp. SFX. Spoon hits tile, sharp, loud, final. We both jumped, startled by our own lives. The sound seemed to travel down the hall and come back changed. And then, "Leah?" Sarah's voice, thin but clear. We spun. She was at the kitchen doorway, propped in the frame by a hand that looked more bone than anything else, hair sleep-tousled, robe tugged close. Her face was pale in a way that told the truth, but her eyes were awake, present, taking inventory. "You're up," I said too fast. The words stumbled over each other, then looked at me for help I didn't have. "I was just coffee." I bent for the spoon with a clatter I couldn't quiet. She didn't answer right away. She looked. At the spoon on the floor. At the mug in my hand. At Mark, standing a little too far from me, like distance could be arranged into virtue. At the gap between us that had shape and temperature. "Early for you," she said finally, soft as a bandage but firm underneath. "You okay?" "I'm fine," I said, hating how quickly it came. "Do you want tea? I can—" Her gaze shifted to Mark. "You haven't even said good morning," she said, not unkindly, just observing a missing piece. Mark swallowed. "Morning," he offered, and it sounded like it had been written down first. He reached for a clean mug, then put it back. Then reached again. The kettle complained. The room held its breath. She took a step into the kitchen. Then another. Her eyes moved between us as if reading a sentence written on a wall we couldn't see. Panic. That was the whole weather report inside me. Panic and its shadow. Inventory. What did we touch? What did we say? What did we move? Sarah's attention settled, finally, on the space just here. Between my wrist and his hand, on the almost touch that hadn't happened and yet had filled the room anyway. "Two of you look tense," she said, curious, not accusing. "Mark, you haven't even said hi." Silence. A long one, long enough to measure. She set her palm on the counter to steady herself and lifted her chin. Not a fight, not even a challenge, just a woman asking for the truth where she lives. Her eyes went first to me, then to him. "Are you two hiding something from me?" Silence. 3 of 5 sec, only the espresso machine hissing. Time. Stops. My heart doesn't beat. Air won't move. She knows. Oh God, she knows. My whole world is collapsing right here on this kitchen tile. She barks a small, wrong laugh. "Leah, too bright." Voice cracks. "Hide? Us? No. What? What are you even saying, Sarah? Don't. Don't be ridiculous." "I'm laughing." "Why am I laughing?" I sound unhinged. Mark cuts in, fast, trying to steady. "Mark. Low. Tight. Sarah. Sweetheart. Maybe you should get back to bed. You're misreading this." Sarah doesn't look at him. Her eyes pin Leah. Sarah. Flat. Cold. "I'm asking Leah." Mark clocks Leah's spiral. Pivots. Grabs truth and repurposes it. "Mark. Quick." Overlapping. "It's about Chris. He came here yesterday. He's using the truth, turning it into a shield." Leah lunges for the lifeline, words tumbling. Leah, too fast, stumbling. "Yes. Yes. Chris. He showed up and he was scary, Sarah. He grabbed me on the porch and I, Mark. Over her, controlling tempo. I had to intervene. He put hands on her. That's why the tension. We were just talking it through, counseling her, making sure she feels safe here. Counseling, a clean word for a filthy room. Leah, softer, pleading. I panicked. I didn't want to worry you. That's all, Sarah. I swear. Sarah takes a breath. The machine hisses. A spoon ticks once against ceramic. Sarah, measured. He grabbed you. Leah, tiny. Yes. Sarah, to Mark, without turning. And you, counseled her. Mark, even. I protected her. That's it. Stack the blocks. Fear, fact, polish. Don't let them fall. Leah, rushing to fill the air. I should have told you last night. After the meds, I wanted you to rest and I thought if we handled it quietly. Mark, gentle, interjecting. We're filing a report if he tries again. Boundaries. That's all this is? Close up, Sarah's face. She listens. She doesn't blink. Please believe us. Please believe the version that doesn't burn the house down. Sarah's gaze flicks. Leah's trembling hand, the calculated distance between them, the second mug. Sarah, soft, lethal. Beat. She turns the cup in her fingers, eyes never leaving Leah. She hears the lie humming under the clean word, and she does not believe. Silence swelling, only a faint kettle hiss, a clock tick. I lied, I swore, and Sarah, she just looked at us. Then, she smiled. See you. Sarah's face, the smallest curl at the lip. The smile is wrong, cold, emptied out. It isn't a smile, it's something else. Hollow, winter bright. It makes my back go cold. She knows. Our lie is cheap. Sarah, gentle even. Counseling? About Chris? How thoughtful, Mark. Sarah moves, measured steps, to the porch table just visible through the doorframe. She walks, slow as a metronome, like she's arriving at a verdict she wrote last night. Sarah picks up the cardboard tissue box from the porch. Sarah, almost curious. The tissue box? Mark's eyes flick to Leah. Leah's to Mark. A quick, trapped look. I don't understand. We're both suddenly children, caught, wordless. What is she? Sarah turns back, that same not smile holding. Sarah, light, surgical. He passed you a tissue just like that when Chris was here, didn't he? Everything freezes. How does she know? I don't even remember. Sarah, you were sleeping? Sarah, tilting her head. You think so? Sarah steps into the kitchen. The not smile collapses, muscle by muscle. Sarah, voice thinning, cracking. I heard Chris yelling, and then I heard the silence after. A swallow. I heard you crying, alone on the porch. Another beat. I heard everything. She looks down at the box in her hand as if it burns. The smile is gone. Her face shatters open. SFX. Thud. The tissue box slams to the tile, skids, crumples. Sarah, bursting ragged. You're my sister. Leah, you are my blood. How could you? How could you do this to me? She sobs, raw, unhidden, a sound the house has never held. Mark takes half a step forward, stops. His hands hover, empty. Leah doesn't move. The lie is dead. There's nothing to dress it in now. No clean word to launder what we did. Sarah, to both. But staring through Leah, in my house, while I'm sick, her breath fractures. Get out, both of you, get out. Mark, husk, barely sound. Sarah, a single blade. Don't. Leah's hand trembles around the mug. She sets it down so it won't rattle. The room is all breath and wreckage. I stand there and take it. Because she's right. Because every version of the story ends at this sentence. Beat. Leah looks at the crushed box on the floor, then at Sarah's shaking shoulders. What have I done? See you. Sarah's face. Wet. Blazing. She does not blink. Cut to black on her breathing. Silence. Only Sarah's ragged sobs. A faint clock tick. She has slid to the floor beside the crushed tissue box. And then, the shouting stops. What's left is the breaking. Sarah, my Sarah, is crying. That sound will live in my ribs forever. I don't speak. I can't move. I am a murderer with no blood. Mark stands motionless. He doesn't look at Sarah. He looks at Leah. Only Leah. He isn't watching the woman who's falling apart. He's watching the woman who caused it. Mark exhales, long, as if signing something invisible. He squares his shoulders. And then, Mark speaks. Not frantic, just finished. Mark. Low. Steady. Sarah, this is my fault. Sarah's sobs hitch. She doesn't look up. He takes it. The weight. He lifts it, names it, like a verdict he can live under. Mark. The words cost him. I'll file for divorce. What? No. No. Sarah's hand curls on the tile, a small protective fist. Divorce is not a bandage, it is an autopsy. It doesn't save her. It just names the body. Mark turns fully to Leah now. Sarah is a trembling silhouette at the edge of frame. He steps in close. And then, he turns to me. In front of my sister, collapsing on the floor, he chooses. He reaches. His fingers close around Leah's hand. Mark, almost pleading. Leah, come with me. Close on their joined hands, Leah looks down at the same palm that passed her a tissue. The same palm that drew a line on the lawn. He wants me to move now, to step over what we shattered. I look at his hand, the hand that protected me, then at my sister. Crumpled. Ruined. I am not a victim. I am a weapon. I did this. Leah gently pulls her hand free. Leah. Whisper. Absolute. No. Mark blinks. Impact without motion. Sarah's sob catches, then resumes. Smaller. As if the room itself is tired. I choose the truth. Late and useless. But mine. I choose the floor where my sister is, not the door that would finish breaking her. Leah kneels beside Sarah, palms open, empty. Leah, to Sarah, barely voiced. I'm here. It does not fix anything. It is not forgiveness. It is only a refusal to keep falling. Q. Mark. Alone in the doorway. Sarah, shaking. Leah, still, anchored in the wreckage, cut on the quiet. Sarah's sobs. Thin and shaking. Mark frozen. Saying no doesn't feel like victory. Not relief. Just the last true thing left. I look at Mark. Stunned. Almost betrayed. And I don't care anymore. There's nothing left in me to care with. Leah doesn't apologize. She doesn't explain. She turns and walks out of the kitchen. Mark stays rooted. Sarah crumples. Crying. Leave the wreckage where it fell. Leave the witnesses where they stand. Footsteps down the hall, away from the light and the noise. Guest room. The small suitcase on the chair. The bag I arrived with. The one I used to escape. Waits like proof. Leah folds a sweater, a shirt, zips the case. The sound is clean. Final. She lifts her phone, dials. It connects instantly. Chris. Leah. You. Leah cuts in, voice unfamiliar, cold, emptied out. Leah, clear, measured. I'm not coming home. I want a divorce. She ends the call. No reply, no echo. Don't let the argument start. Don't let the old gravity catch. Handle clicks. Hallway. She does not glance toward the kitchen. I pick up the suitcase. I walk out of that house. I don't look into the kitchen. Front door opens. Outside air rushes in. I leave the husband I don't love and the man I'm not allowed to. She steps onto the porch, closes the door behind her. I have nothing. I have no one. Silence. A single distant car passes. Leah descends the steps with the suitcase. Cut. VO. Quiet. Settled. It's been a year. The dust found places to live. Lawyers sent envelopes. Signatures dried. I'm divorced. Sarah and Mark, they're divorced too. There isn't a ceremony for ending a family in pieces. You just box up holidays and learn new maps of silence. We text sometimes. Not essays. Weather reports. Cold today. Wear a scarf. You too. The words arrive like cups left outside her door. She doesn't always open it. I don't always knock. The scar doesn't heal. It just stops bleeding. As for Chris, his name shows up on paperwork now, not in rooms. We never learned how to be kind. We learned how to be done. That, too, is an education. I live in a small apartment with loud pipes and honest light. Nothing matches. Thrift store table. A plant I'm teaching to forgive me. 2 mugs that chip if you breathe on them. It isn't much. It's mine. I've spent a year asking the same unfair question. Who was I in this story? Villain? Victim? Maybe both. I stood still so long I mistook numbness for kindness. Then I moved in the worst direction, toward the heat of being seen instead of the work of being true. Every mistake has a price. Mine is measured in a sister's eyes that no longer rest on me, in the memory of a kitchen where the air went thin. In holidays I will spend on other chairs. That is the bill. I keep paying it. But I learned something I wish I'd learned before the wreckage. There are clean words you can drape over a dirty room. Counseling, boundaries, complicated. They don't change the stains. Only truth does, and truth is a solvent that takes color with it. So here is the simplest version, the kind you can say out loud without choking. I would rather be honest and alone than live inside a story that looks good in photos and bad in the dark. Now, when the morning slides in and catches the dust, I let it. The room is small. I am lonely sometimes, but it's real. At least now I am finally myself.